In this lecture, we're going to talk about orthonormal sets of vectors. Previously, we talked about what it means for a set of vectors to be orthogonal, and basically what that means is that each pair of distinct vectors is an orthogonal pair of vectors. If I ever take u sub I dot u sub j, I always get 0 as long as I and j are different. For a set of vectors to be orthonormal, it has to be orthogonal, so it has to have that same property that I just said, but also, when I dot each vector with itself, I get the number 1. Another way to say that is that the length of the vector would have to be 1. In other words, all of the vectors in the set have to be unit vectors. Remember that when I dot a vector with itself, what I'm really getting is the norm of the vector squared. And if the norm of the vector squared is 1, well then that means that the norm of the vector itself has to be the number 1. Now there's a simple example of an orthonormal set, and that would be the standard basis for our vector space Rn. Remember that E1 here means 1 in the first position and then zeros everywhere else. E2 means a 1 in the second position and then zeros everywhere else, and so on. And then E sub n means a 1 in the nth position and zeros everywhere else. Clearly all of these vectors is a unit vector, and if we take any of these vectors and dot it with any of the other vectors, we're always going to get 0. So that's an example of an orthonormal set. Here's a less obvious example. So for us to prove that this is an orthonormal set, we have to do several things. First of all, we have to show that every pair of distinct vectors in this set are orthogonal. So for example, we need to show that v1 dot v2 is 0. So in this case, v1 dot v2 is 3 over the square root of 11 times negative 1 over the square root of 6 plus 1 over the square root of 11 times 2 over the square root of 6, plus 1 over the square root of 11, times 1 over the square root of 6. This works out to be negative 3 over the square root of 66, plus 2 over the square root of 66, plus 1 over the square root of 66, and that works out to be 0. Similarly, it turns out, I'll let you check this on your own, that v2 dot v3 is 0, and v1 dot v3 is also 0. That much shows that this is an orthogonal set of vectors. For us to show that it's an orthonormal set, we additionally have to dot each vector with itself and show that we get 1 in every case. So for example, v1 dot v1, that's going to be 3 over radical 11 squared, plus 1 over radical 11 squared, plus 1 over radical 11 squared. That works out to be 9 over 11, plus 1 over 11, plus 1 over 11, which is in fact 1. So again, I would have to show that v2 dot v2 is 1, and also that v3 dot v3 is 1. But all of that turns out to work out. Again, you can check that on your own. So this turns out to be an orthonormal set of vectors. Now, one of the reasons why we care about orthonormal sets of vectors is that there's a relationship between the inverse of a matrix and the transpose of a matrix in certain cases that relate to orthonormal sets of vectors. So the theorem says that an m by n matrix U, so notice that that matrix doesn't have to be square, although it could be, that matrix has orthonormal columns if and only if U transpose times U equals the identity. So remember that if U is not a square matrix, then that doesn't mean that U transpose is the same as U inverse. But if it is a square matrix, then it does say that. So that's something we'll talk a little bit more about later on. Let's get to the proof. So to illustrate the idea of the proof, let's just work with 3 columns. So the idea of the proof works the same, but just reducing our attention to 3 columns really gets us where we can understand the idea of the proof. So in this case, U transpose has rows that look like the transposes of the columns. So the first row of U transpose is little u1 transpose. The second row of U transpose is u2 transpose, and so on. So when we multiply those together, remember that means we go across the rows of the first matrix and down the columns of the second matrix. And so in fact, we just get the U transpose multiplied by the U for each position of our matrix. But remember that a vector transpose multiplied by another vector, that's just another way of saying dot product. So this is really just u1 dot u1 in the 1, 1 position, u1 dot u2 in the 1, 2 position, and so on. Now, if the columns of U are orthonormal, then every time we dot a vector with itself, we're going to get a 1. So all of those positions are 1s. And if we're dotting one of the vectors with a different vector, every time we dot 2 distinct vectors, we're going to get 0s. So we're going to get 0s in all these red positions. But that's exactly the identity matrix. This is exactly going to be 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. And so that proves the theorem. Another theorem here talks about what kinds of effects multiplying by a matrix that has orthonormal columns has on vectors. So you can think of these as talking about properties of the linear transformation that takes a vector x and gives us the vector u times x. Part A here says that the norm of ux is the same as the norm of x, so in other words, the transformation preserves length. Part B says that ux dot uy is the same as x dot y, and one consequence of that is part C, which says that ux dot uy is 0 if and only if x dot y is 0. And that part C essentially tells us that this transformation preserves orthogonality. If we plug two orthogonal vectors into the linear transformation, the two results that we get also have to be orthogonal. Now part C obviously follows from part B, but so does part A, because what part A says is that if I take ux and dot it with ux, that should be the same as x dot x. But on the left-hand side, I have the norm of ux squared. Remember, when we dot a vector with itself, we get the norm squared. And on the right-hand side, I have the norm of x squared. Take the square root of both sides, and we get the resulting statement in part A. So really, all we have to prove is part B here. And again, to illustrate the idea of the proof, we're going to assume that the matrix capital U has 3 columns. So we're trying to show that ux dot uy is the same as x dot y. That's our goal. So what is ux? Well, thinking all the way back to when we first defined the product of a matrix times a vector, all ux is a linear combination of the columns of u. It's x1, the scalar x1, times the vector u1, plus the scalar x2 times the vector u2, plus the scalar x3 times the vector u3. Similarly, uy is a linear combination, with the coefficients coming from the vector y, of the columns of capital U. So now we have to dot these two things together. So ux dot uy is the first linear combination dotted with the second linear combination. But now we're going to use the distributive properties of dot product, and so since we have 3 terms in the first set of parentheses and 3 terms in the second set of parentheses, we get 9 terms when we multiply it all out. But very similarly to what we just saw in the previous proof, anytime we're dotting a vector with itself, we're going to get a 1. So all of these 3 dot products are 1s. And anytime we're dotting one of these columns with a different column, when we have a dot product of 2 distinct vectors, we're going to get a 0. That's the definition of orthonormal. And so only the blue terms survive, and we just get x1, y1, plus x2, y2, plus x3, y3. That's exactly x dot y. And that proves part B of the theorem. Again, I've only proved it here for 3 columns in the matrix U, but the same proof would work no matter how many columns we have. So as I said before, one of the ways to interpret this theorem is that the mapping from x to ux is a mapping that preserves length and orthogonality. And this is a useful thing when we talk about computer simulations, graphics, visualizations, because oftentimes we have a camera that's flying around, and you can imagine the transformation of rotating the camera, moving the camera, and we want to make sure that as the camera flies around, the lengths and angles being observed by the camera don't change. And so this is a very important application to talking about those kinds of simulations. Again, something I said earlier is that if U is a square matrix that has orthonormal columns, then saying that U transpose U equals the identity matrix is the same as saying that U transpose is the same as U inverse. And a matrix that has that property is called an orthogonal matrix. Probably it should be called an orthonormal matrix, because what we're saying is that this is a matrix that has orthonormal columns. But unfortunately, a little bit confusingly, the standard terminology here is to call it an orthogonal matrix. Now, one of the consequences of the U transpose being the U inverse is that an orthogonal matrix not only has orthonormal columns, but it also has orthonormal rows. So we're going to be working a lot with these kinds of matrices going forward, working towards something called the singular value decomposition.